There is a moment, recorded by the historian Cassius Dio, that almost nobody talks about. Marcus Aurelius is sitting in the Roman Senate. Men around him are shouting, accusing, posturing, each one trying to prove he is the smartest voice in the room and the most powerful man in the entire empire. The one person who could end any of their careers with a single sentence says nothing. He sits, he listens, he watches, and when he finally speaks, usually just a few words, the room goes completely silent. Not because he raised his voice, because he hadn't wasted a single one of his words for the last hour. This is the part of Marcus Aurelius that almost no one studies. Not his wars, not his title, not his armies, his silence. And today, I want to show you why he believed silence wasn't weakness, wasn't avoidance, wasn't fear. It was the single greatest weapon a mind could carry. Let's begin. To understand why Marcus valued silence so deeply, you have to understand the world he was forced to operate in. Rome, in the 2nd century, was not a quiet place. It was a city of constant noise, constant performance. Senators competed for attention in the forum, shouting over each other to be heard. Generals postured for glory. Court officials whispered rumors designed to destroy reputations overnight. Everyone was speaking, constantly, desperately, as if silence itself was a kind of death. In that world, talking was currency. The loudest voice often won the room. And Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man alive, walked into that noise every single day and chose something almost nobody else dared to choose. He chose to say less. Not because he had nothing to say. He had more reason to speak than anyone in that empire. He could have silenced any senator, overruled any general, crushed any rival with a single declaration. But Marcus understood something that the people shouting around him never grasped. Every time you speak, you reveal something. Your fears, your insecurities, your need to be seen as right. And every time you stay silent, you keep that information to yourself while gathering everyone else's. This was not passivity. This was strategy. In his private writings, the journal we now call Meditations, Marcus returns to this idea again and again. He wrote to himself, "How much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does, but only at what he does himself." Read that again. He is not telling himself to ignore the world. He is telling himself to stop reacting to every single thing that happens around him. Because here is the truth Marcus understood at the deepest level. Most words spoken in anger, in defensiveness, in the heat of an argument are not chosen. They are reactions. And a reaction is not freedom. A reaction is a puppet string. Someone else pulls it, and your mouth moves. Marcus refused to be that puppet, so he built a discipline, a practice, a wall between provocation and response. And that wall was silence. Let me give you the clearest example of this in his entire life. When Marcus became emperor, his co-ruler, Lucius Verus, was reckless, indulgent, and frequently humiliated the throne with his behavior. Historians of the era expected conflict. 2 emperors, 2 egos, 1 empire. It should have ended in disaster. But Marcus did something unexpected. He didn't lecture Lucius publicly. He didn't humiliate him in front of the Senate. He didn't make speeches about discipline and virtue to shame his co-emperor into changing. He simply continued his own conduct. Steady, disciplined, silent on the matter, in public, almost entirely. And over time, Lucius's recklessness became obvious to everyone. By comparison, without Marcus ever having to say a single critical word. This is what Marcus meant when he wrote, "Waste no more time talking about great souls and how they should be. Be one." Silence, for Marcus, was not the absence of communication. It was a different form of communication, one that let his actions, not his words, make the argument. There is a deeper layer to this, though, one that goes beyond strategy and political wisdom. Marcus Aurelius believed that silence trains the mind itself. Think about what happens in your own life when you're upset. Someone insults you, disrespects you, disappoints you. The immediate impulse is to respond, right now, with force, to match their energy or exceed it. And in that moment, if you do respond immediately, you are not actually thinking. You are reacting from a place of pure emotion, unfiltered by reason. Marcus called this living by impression alone, letting the surface of an event control your behavior without ever examining whether that impression was even accurate. Silence interrupts that process. When you choose not to speak immediately, even for 10 seconds, even for one breath, you create a gap. And in that gap, something remarkable happens. The emotional reaction begins to lose its grip. The rational mind, the part of you capable of actual judgment, gets a chance to enter the room. Marcus trained himself to live inside that gap. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The mind he was talking about controlling wasn't some abstract concept. It was the immediate, often violent impulse to react, to defend, to explain, to argue, to prove a point. Every time Marcus chose silence over reaction, he was practicing this exact form of mental control. He was proving to himself, again and again, that he was not a slave to his own impulses. And here is something almost nobody talks about when they discuss Stoicism. Silence was not just a tool for dealing with enemies or rivals. Marcus used silence as a relationship with grief itself. When his children died, and several of them did during his reign, he did not write long, public laments. He did not perform his sorrow for the empire to witness. He handled it largely in private, in the quiet of his own writing, in the discipline of his own mind. This wasn't suppression. Marcus was not a man pretending pain didn't exist. It was something more controlled, more intentional. He believed that grief, like anger, like fear, deserved to be examined quietly before it was expressed loudly. Because once spoken, words cannot be unspoken. Once a reaction leaves your mouth, it belongs to the world, not just to you anymore. Marcus protected his most vulnerable thoughts inside silence until he understood them well enough to know what, if anything, needed to be said at all. This brings us to perhaps the most practical lesson in this entire video. Marcus Aurelius operated by a principle that modern psychology would later confirm through decades of research. The pause between stimulus and response is where all human freedom actually lives. Everything that makes you reactive, impulsive, easily provoked happens when that pause disappears. And everything that makes you composed, strategic, respected happens when you protect that pause and refuse to let anyone take it from you. Here is how you can begin practicing this today. The next time someone says something that triggers an immediate emotional reaction in you, criticism, an insult, bad news, a provocation, do not speak right away. Not because you're avoiding the issue, not because you're weak or unsure. Count silently to 5. In that 5 seconds, ask yourself one question. Is what I am about to say something I have chosen, or something that has been provoked out of me? If it is chosen, speak it clearly and fully. If it was provoked, wait longer. Sometimes minutes, sometimes days. Marcus did not always respond the same day to political insults thrown at him. Sometimes the most powerful response was simply outliving the controversy in complete public silence. This single habit, creating distance between provocation and reaction, is, in many ways, the entire architecture of Stoic discipline compressed into one practice. There's one final piece of this that I think is the most important. Silence, for Marcus Aurelius, was not about other people at all, in the end. It was about self-respect. Every time you stay silent in the face of provocation, you are communicating something profound to yourself. My peace is not for sale. My composure is not something anyone else gets to take from me with a few words. Every time you speak from anger, you hand a piece of your own control to whoever provoked you. Marcus, ruling an empire, surrounded by men desperate for his attention and his anger, refused to hand that control away. Not because he didn't feel anger. He was human. He felt all of it. Grief, frustration, betrayal, exhaustion. But he understood that feeling something and broadcasting it immediately to the world are two entirely separate choices. And the gap between those two choices, that quiet, disciplined space, was where Marcus Aurelius built the most powerful mind of the ancient world. So the next time you feel the urge to respond instantly to something that hurt you, remember this: the loudest person in the room rarely has the most power. The person who controls the silence usually does. If this video gave you something to sit with, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to keep building a mind that nothing can shake, subscribe to Stoic Insights 8. This is only the beginning. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Be silent for the most part, or, if you speak, say only what is necessary, and in few words. I'll see you in the next one.